about you?
Do you want to share with me?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Are you sure?
We have just one fewer than we have people.
They're gonna share.
Reminder to everyone, we're speaking into the mic so that they join this live stream here.
Can hear.
Not so much for the room, of course, when it's quiet in here.
Yeah.
An easy place to keep it, but into the mic. You guys think that talking about this back is Paula Dean or Paula Abdul more famous Paula?
Which
Abdul.
So why Paula Dean
I think Abdul.
or Paula Abdul?
Dean had. I feel like when they were speaking that Paula, it was
Okay.
in very particular ways.
No, right. So
And-
Paula Abdul, no argument, had a
Yeah,
way higher
Abdul.
yeah,
but Paula Dean.
might have more.
Let's put it this way: when you hear their names, what face do you make? Yeah. When you hear their names, what face do you make? I think that matters.
Yeah, the question has almost made it to every other adult.
Is there a verdict?
Abdul.
Not a conclusive one.
I think Abdul.
I also think
I think it's
but I think it's closer than either of them.
closer than they would
I
like.
want it to be Abdul.
That's right. And then what is it actually?
Yeah.
No love for Paula
We
Dean.
we can. I mean.
I think she just right? She popped up on YouTube.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Was it YouTube?
television.
Paula Dean was on Food Network.
Yeah,
Yeah.
television.
Wait, she
Actual television.
Yeah.
I don't even know that before.
Didn't she have like a racist moment?
Yes. No, it was very pronounced.
Yeah.
That's what I was like.
The name
the name.
having that racist moment.
Maybe we make it face.
I don't know. Well, I think better.
I think we're getting quiet.
I'm gonna message that it's go time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. We are so excited that you're here today with us for our Girls in Gaming Summit. This is the second year we've been able to host this event. I'm Rachel McVeigh. I work at the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, so we do a lot of what I do a lot of there. It's a really big organization, and we do a lot of different things. But one of the things that we do is like professional development and workshops and things like that for your teachers. But I'm thrilled that I get to be here with students today. You guys are so much fun to be with, so any chance I get to be with kids, I'm really excited about. So we're here today in partnership with Carnegie Mellon University Entertainment Technology Center. That's the building where we are and also the program. This event would not be possible without my partner, Anthony Polazeski. Yay, Anthony. Yay, Anthony. So we're both like, we've been so excited planning this for you today. We are going to start with a panel discussion. So you will get to learn a lot about different aspects of the field of gaming. So I think that you'll probably hear something that really resonates with you individually is my hope, because it's such a broad field and there's much more to it than people often think there is. This all came about because a few years ago I was going to a couple of schools and they had like esports teams and I was just kind of like visiting the events and immediately I was like, where are the girls? There were like very few girls. And it really struck me and I was thinking, well, maybe we can do something to support our girls in our area kind of in this field as students, whether it's they like to play video games or maybe they want to use their talents and skills in this industry when they get older. So I'm going to hand it over to Ria, who will be moderating our panel today. But if you need anything at all, please let me or Anthony know, and we'll get going.
Woohoo!
Hello, I'm Ria. I'm a student here at the ETC. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and let our panelists give a little introduction.
Hi, I'm Vivian Shen. I am the newest professor here at the ETC, and I come from a background of robotics. So sort of what I work on adjacent to gaming is devices for gaming. So like headsets, I've worked on Quest headsets and haptic devices, which we can talk more about, but that's what my background is in.
No, pretend pass. Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Fitzpatrick. I direct the digital narrative and interactive design major at the University of Pittsburgh. And so I think about game design from both the intersection of like the humanities, narrative design, and the information science side of things.
Hi, I'm Heather Kelly. I'm a professor here at the Entertainment Technology Center. I've been here for like 11 years now, which is crazy. And before that, and still to this day, I am a game designer, game developer. I've worked at Ubisoft. I've worked on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo DS over the years, PC games, and I've worked on VR games, and I'm going to be talking to you all about that later today. Let me see if there's anything else I didn't include. For a little while, I was the chair of the Women in Games group of the International Game Developers Association, but that was like ancient history. So anyway, that's all I'll say.
Hi everyone, my name is Malaya. I'm a current student here at the ETC, although I'm graduating next week. I'm very interested in video games, but mostly its intersection with themed entertainment, so like theme parks and museums and all that. I've done an internship at Disney, and I'm going back in the summer, so I'm excited to talk to you all about that.
That's really awesome. You guys are very, very talented women. How were you first exposed to the idea that you could do your job?
I got exposed also in high school. How I came from the devices standpoint is my high school had a robotics team, and there were also no women on the robotics team. So my best friend, who was the captain, was like, please join. So it's not just a bunch of guys and me. And so I joined her. It ended up being really fun. And separately, I have been playing video games, and also what inspired me the most was going to like Disneyland specifically my whole life, and then I ended up combining those both into an internship at Disney, and that sort of set me on this path.
Yeah, for me, my dad works in computer graphics, so that for me showed me how programming can really not just be so technical, but open up to more creative fields. Yeah, and for theme parks specifically, similar to Vivian, I also went to Disneyland a lot growing up, and it was really cool to see how technology can make fun things.
All right, I'm a Florida girl. It's Walt Disney World all the way, not Disney, forget Disneyland, yuck, Walt Disney World. No, no, I do feel a little bit attached to that, but I understand. They're both good parks. I did play games when I was growing up, but I'm pretty old, so that was like Atari and a lot of board games. I think that was really influential for me, was playing all the board games with my sister and our friends. That got me into enjoying playing games. And then when I grew up, I kind of was giving it up. I did a lot of other stuff. I was in the band and did all these other activities. I didn't do a lot of gaming. But then when I was in college, some friends of mine introduced me to the internet, and I got really into it to the point that I wanted to study it. So I went to grad school to study the internet, and while I was there, I was in Austin, Texas, and that's like a really big city for doing game development. And so I met a lot of people there that showed me that doing games could take all my love of the arts and of music and of reading and writing and all the stuff that I really was into and combine them. And so I had a lot of people that inspired me along the way when I was just exploring what the possibilities were. And so, yeah, there's definitely mentors out there like you had, or your friends that encourage you to do something that really make a big difference.
I was the person who loved reading books and who loved playing board games, and playing PS1 was my jam. I also was somebody who was like, ooh, let's create our own imaginary worlds. So I would take a big piece of paper, a poster board, and make a board game. And the mechanics were so-so. How many of you have ever tried to make like a board game just on your own? Yeah, it's fun. And you learn a lot by doing it. And I decided, oh, okay, I think I want to become an English professor. And I did that. But along the way, I kept wanting to play with things that were digital, and I kept wanting to play with things that were interactive, and I kept wanting to play. And a lot of the students that I would teach found out that that resonated with them. And so I started teaching the weird classes in the English department, right? Things about narrative and technology, things about game studies, things about taking the city of Pittsburgh and turning it into a website. That's the Secret Pittsburgh Tour Guide. And when this new major came out in 2019, they needed somebody to direct it, and they were like, hey, you seem like you really like this stuff. And I was like, I do really like this stuff, and I like things like Twine, and I like doing game design. And so I fell into it, but actually you never actually fall into something. It's things and little choices that you do along the way and ways of making what you love to do thrive, even if your original title may not seem like it. And so that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of interdisciplinary aspects to gaming, whether it's programming, technology, art, and design. And so kind of leading into that, what are certain classes you recommend that they take in school or areas of study that help focus on how to excel in the field?
Yeah, for me, before here, I went to University of Maryland and I studied, it was called immersive media design. And it was kind of a collaboration between computer science and art. And I think that was really helpful for me, not only that program and this one, obviously, entertainment technology, because I've learned programming in computer science classes, but that can only help so much when working in games because it's really important to learn how to communicate that to other people who aren't programmers. So like working with artists and designers like Rhea was saying, I think finding any opportunity to have that interdisciplinary experience. And I don't think it necessarily has to be in a class. Like if you can team up with some of your friends and make a cool game, just side project for fun, I think that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, a comment I want to make is that it's very interdisciplinary, and having a healthy understanding of a lot of aspects is going to be really helpful. But also, find which one you're really excited about, and it doesn't have to be one of the traditional things you associate with gaming. Like, it doesn't have to be computer science. It doesn't have to be like digital art. Like, if you're really into sound design, if you're really into like thinking about sounds and cool sounds in the world, that could be an aspect you focus on, and we need that in games too. If you really like figuring out how things feel physically, like, is the controller even comfortable to hold? You know, people study sort of ergonomics of that kind of design. So it is very interdisciplinary, but also that means that there's a lot of different small fields. And so if there's something that excites you, I bet there's a place for it in the game field.
The thing I want to add is that a lot of the one of the very useful skills to have in this field is being able to translate between people who have different specialties. As I was mentioning, I spent some time not doing digital stuff. I wanted to be a music critic or an art critic, so I was studying visual art, I was studying music, learning to analyze these things, and I got into the computer side of it kind of late, but I really kind of vibed with it. And I found that one of my skills was to be able to hear someone who's coming from the technical side and hear someone coming from maybe the visual art side and understand. They were using totally different vocabularies, but being able to understand what they meant and help translate between those people. And that was a really useful skill to have when I ended up as a producer, which is kind of like a project manager on games, because some people are very much in their specialty, and helping them sort of interpret one another's needs because you're all trying to work together on this goal became very useful skill to have.
I'm going to lean into that a little bit and say, like, courses in project management might be hard to find, but think about courses in communication or in English, or even in classes where you're going to be working as like a team on maybe a really big project, and how you can step into a leadership role. Project management is huge. It's the only way anything gets done. And so knowing what that takes and learning if that might be your specialization, part of my job is also being quote unquote bossy, right? Can be really illuminating, and it's part of this communication thread that maybe we don't always think about as being core to the game industry, but really is.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of touched on this, but what are types of jobs that exist in the field of gaming that we might not realize?
Project management.
Yeah, I'll say with my experience at Disney, like I think a lot of people don't really relate theme parks and video games since theme parks are so physical and in the real world and video games are so digital. But there's a lot of aspects of video games that show up in theme parks. So for example, there's like little games that you might play in the line or after the ride. And anything that's really interactive almost has that game-like element to it, even if it's not a traditional, like you're using a controller. As long as it has like player input and it's giving you unique fun feedback, I think that kind of falls into gaming, and that's something that exists in museums and theme parks as well.
A big one is marketing. If you make a game, but no one knows about it, then maybe it was really a great experience for you. But I think most people that make a game, it's because you want people to play it. So knowing how to reach other people with what you made and tell them what's cool about it and show them and kind of convince them to take their time, because people, you know, it takes time to play a video game, so giving people a reason to spend their time on your game is a big deal. And along with things like that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, there's also a big role for the economics of it, because you're selling a thing, and there's always a different way of, do I just pay a price and get the game, or do I get the game for free and then I pay for my cosmetics or whatever? So like that whole side of gaming is, although it might be less, you know, immediately thought of as cool, is an incredibly important part of the industry of making games. If you just want to make your own thing for fun and put it on your website, you can, but if you want to get into it as a career, then you have to start thinking about the economy of that.
That's a good one, because my mom's an accountant, and the reason she likes accounting is because she's like, I can choose any industry to work for because they all need accountants. So she's gotten to work for, she did work for a game company at one point, although she's not into games, so then she quickly switched jobs. But she like has worked for all types of different companies as an accountant, because she's like, this is really cool, I get to do this like really cool thing. But the thing I was gonna say is, along Malea's point, anything that's interactive, a big thing right now that I think people are leaning into is having like pop-up experiences. I think T-Mobile likes having these booths. Anthony likes talking about this, but like T-Mobile will have these booths at like festivals or something where you get to go interact with something or do a fun like wall and take a photo with your friends and all that. All of that is entertainment. And so that's why, I mean, that's a big reason why we're called the like Entertainment Technology Center instead of the Game Technology Center, because they're all super related. Anything that's for people and specifically to make people like smile, all those experiences are connected.
And I'm jumping back in at the very end here just to add, this is not a specific role, but it is a direction. Games that are involved in training. So it's not just like educational games, but games or gamified training simulations. Also another arena, and we may not focus on that as much because like who wants to do that? We can make a super fun game, but they can be fun, and fun helps us learn, and it also helps us learn how to do new jobs. And so different businesses and employers are looking for these types of experiences in a variety of fields, and it's another thing to possibly consider.
And people do both. Like if you can do something like that because it is a very good career, then you also have your dev thing on the side where you're making your, you know, cool whatever it is that you have your vision for. So it's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I thought it'd be cool to share. I'm doing an internship where like we're working on simulations for Disney rides, and it's very similar. Like it's in a game engine like software. And it's cool to think of kind of game development as not necessarily the end product of making games, but you can use it, as they're saying, to simulate other cool things in the real world.
Could you also talk a little bit about location-based entertainment as well as an adjacent field?
Yeah, I guess going into more detail about what I was saying earlier, I'll give specific examples, I guess. So if any of you are familiar with, like, do you guys know Turtle Talk with Crush at Disneyland? Like where you talk to Crush and he like interacts with the audience? That's like done in a very game designy way. So like the actual software behind it is very similar to writing code for a video game, because at the end of the day, it's all just interactive inputs and outputs. So I think that's one cool example of game design where you wouldn't typically think of it as game design.
I really love games that have anything in the physical world and use our senses and our bodies and movement and motion and smells and tastes and weird stuff like that, because it's all part of the design, and it engages more of our like humanity, our physical being. And also it's just weird, and I like weird stuff. So that is often very commonly used in theme parks and also in that experiential marketing that you were talking about. So it's fun to play around with those senses.
Two things pop to mind in addition to what everybody's already said. And the first is, if we're thinking about location-based entertainment, I know AR has issues, and I know like the heyday of Pokemon Go is a little behind us. But if we think about augmenting the world around us through these experiences, it can be a really exciting opportunity to think about what makes things like our neighborhoods and our communities, and maybe some places that haven't gotten as much love from technology, an opportunity to really shine and to tell stories that may not always get highlighted on. And so it can also be a really good way to like highlight the communities that you're a part of and bring exciting experiences and maybe money into those locations. But you gotta do so thoughtfully, right? So if you're putting something out in our real world, it's gonna have real world effects, whether that's a digital game, but especially if it's living across the street from somebody. So that's just something that I like to keep in mind when we talk about location-based experiences. The other thing is, they don't always have to be games per se, and they don't always have to be just for big corporations. The National Aviary over in Pittsburgh, I brought my 3-year-old there. They had this cool thing by the penguins. It's a table. You color a bumblebee. You scan that bumblebee. It reskins the 3D model of a bumblebee, sends it into a virtual world that a TV monitor shows off. So the thing that you are making becomes part of this like interactive environment. And kids get to see, and adults get to see their bumblebee come to life and like fly around and think about flight in a new way. So there can be both big and smaller ways of engaging the people that we live and work alongside through this option.
You probably already inferred this from the answers. I just wanted to give a quick definition. Like location-based entertainment really means like being in a space that is themed to whatever the experience in that space is. You could even call like shops sometimes will lean into this. Like if you've ever walked into a store and it's just like really fun and there's like art on the walls and there's LED stuff and you know it's trying to get you to shop, it's trying to get you to buy things. But ultimately that is an experience and there's someone who chose every aspect of like what shoes go over here and what should we display here and where should the mirrors go. So location-based means literally it's just that space is themed. So it can be digital, it can be physical, it can be both. It's usually both, but yeah.
Awesome. I feel like we've gotten a good understanding of games and sort of the adjacent industries. So I kind of want to switch gears and ask, in a truly male-dominated in terms of players, or sorry, is gaming truly male-dominated in terms of players? And if so, why do you think that is?
It's not.
Yeah, no, of course not. That's silly.
Yeah, I feel like one of the most underrated forms of gaming, I guess, is like the mobile gaming industry is so big. And I think a lot of that is like middle-aged woman like playing Candy Crush, you know what I mean? So like I feel like the typical like idea of a gamer of like a man is kind of overblown when like other forms of gaming are kind of pushed off to the side, but it's still like real gaming, and I think people should remember that.
I know that is a. I haven't looked at the numbers lately. I wonder if that even that kind of assumption is still true about like who plays mobile games. Like I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
They're really popular now. So there was definitely an era where that was like, oh, that's who's playing mobile games, and you know if you add that number in, then it's equal. But I actually think it's probably changed since then. But luckily, I don't have to go and do a lot of analysis of the games industry these days, so I'm not sure.
No, that's awesome. Me and Malaya have been playing Disney Dreamlight Valley, and we went to a GDC talk where they were talking about how most of the people there, like, you would think it was geared towards younger women, but it was geared towards middle-aged women, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, I think like cozy games are kind of forgotten. And like amongst all these like big, more violent like games that are targeted towards men, but there's a lot of women who would play lots of Disney Dreamlight Valley, including me.
And lots of people who also like violence.
True.
I mean, I teach level design, and we use Fortnite, so there's a mixture.
Have there been any barriers that you have faced in the gaming industry? And if so, how have you sort of tackled them?
Sorry if anyone wants to talk, you can. But I guess I would say in my internship, it definitely was more male dominated, but I think it's really important to find mentors who are women who are able to offer you advice because they know what it's like to be in your position. And I think it's really important to like almost band together with other people since you're all going through a shared experience and yeah, make connections and you'll feel less alone.
Yeah, I think my experience is very similar. My robotics PhD program had 44 people and 6 women out of the 44. So I've been in a lot of sort of male-dominant spaces. I think that this is not necessarily advice, but just like developing thick skin is really important. And I think that helps in a lot of different industries, of course. But I think just like a lot of people are ignorant. A lot of people make comments. It's something to let roll off you. You are enough. You are good enough. You can do what you want to do. And the biggest advice I was just giving to someone the other day is like, let someone else tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. So applying for things, doing things, all of that, let someone else tell you no. Don't write yourself out before you even try.
This is a complicated question because I've been doing this for so long, and I can't say I didn't have any setbacks, but I also found ways, because being a woman in the industry at the time was slightly more unique, to kind of lean into it and use that to my advantage as well. In terms of, like I said, I was this co-chair of the Women in Games group. That was something that I volunteered to do, and it became like a leadership position, and I met so many people that way, and it got me I don't know if it got me other jobs, but like it got me connected to a lot of other people. And so not trying to ignore the fact that I may be a bit of an outlier, but also not letting that kind of define me negatively, just being myself and being sort of extroverted and believing that I could do anything that, if I wanted to, that other folks were doing, and then just teaching myself a lot often of how to do that. And again, finding the mentors. And I do think it's important to find other women, but if there aren't, you can find people that will mentor you regardless of their gender. So I think that it shouldn't be overlooked, is that like a lot of people are wanting to support your growth in the field. So finding those people is a lot of help.
Yeah, I was asking some of my students who are going to help with our breakout later. Hi, students in the back room. Wave, yeah. What's one thing that they wanted to make sure that I told you all? And they were like, networking. Networking will matter forever, no matter what they end up doing. So have that. But also, to complement the emphasis on mentorship, support networks matter. And if you can't have somebody who has a similar, let's say, embodied experience in your profession, maybe because the room can't fit you both at the time, make friends when you do things like go to conferences, when you go to school, and then stay in touch with them, because even if you're not in the same organization, you can support each other. So you can have these long-distance supportive networks, and that's been really important for me and a lot of people I know, because even if it's not exactly the same flavor, it's going to be similar. And you can be there for each other even if you're not there in the room.
Awesome. Now that you guys have gotten a little taste of the industry, I would love to hear some questions from you guys. So if you have a question, please raise your hand.
Are we running mics?
I want to maybe add on to something you said, Jess, because you mentioned the networking that we did talk about earlier, and it was brought up that maybe you don't necessarily know what networking means. It basically means meeting cool people who are doing similar things to you and talking to them about what you're doing and learning about what they're doing. So it's not just about, I'm going to tell you. It's also about being curious about what they're up to. And finding ways that, I might have something that can help you. Maybe you have something that can help me. or maybe I have questions, and maybe I can see you had experience that relates to something I need help with, and we get on email, or we join a Discord together that you know about, or you have information that could help me. Like, okay, I'll give an example. I am working on a video game right now, and to make a recording of this high-end video game, I needed to have some very high-end like recording hardware that costs like thousands of dollars, but I can't afford to get it myself. But I had a friend who's also making some video game, and he lives in Chicago, but we happened to run into each other at this conference called Game Developers Conference, really big conference in San Francisco. And we were talking about what we needed to do to promote our games, and he told me he had that tech, and I was like, wow, I could really use something like that, but there's no way I can afford to get that. And we just like arranged that he would like send it to me and let me borrow it for a little while so that I could make the video, and then I'm gonna send it back to him. So like, this is somebody that doesn't owe me anything. We're not in a business relationship. It's just someone who's a friend of mine from years and years of being in this field together, and we're supporting each other. And he wanted some advice for like a job thing he wanted to do, and I gave him some feedback. So between the two of us, we were able to help each other in a really concrete way that, like, if I hadn't already established this friendship over time, that just wouldn't have been there. So that's what it's like.
Also, you're in a room full of people who like the same thing you do. That seems exciting, right? Like, all of you are already starting to form communities, and that's good.
All right, so if we don't have any questions, let's do some audience engagement. Well, first, if anyone has a question, raise your hand at any time. But
These are really awesome people to ask questions to. If you have any questions at all that are appropriate for this event.
oh, we have one.
How do you guys like see yourselves like getting into this industry, and like how like what is it like getting like into the like sorry, I'm trying to like think about how to word it, like of like she mentioned like way early on, like quote unquote falling into it. Like, is it more like, I feel like it could look very differently since it's such a broad industry, but like for different people like getting into the industry, but I'm just like curious about it.
That's a great question. I think there's two components to getting into any industry. I think one of the big ones is, what do you like to do? So, for example, I was very lucky to have a CS class in my high school. I know not all high schools do, although maybe it's more common now. And I had a lot of fun, so I like really found myself liking programming, and I thought that was super, super fun. That you can go into sort of a lot of different things, and that's true for a lot of different, fields. You can go into a lot of industries. And then the second part is, I figured out what I like to do, which is CS, and then I figured out what industry I was interested in, which is I really liked entertainment. And I realized this because I had made some things that people could interact with, and just having them smile and be like, whoa, was really fun. And so it's, like what I like to do and then what industry I want to work in. But again, that's true for anything. Like I said, my mom, she really likes doing accounting, but she really likes the industry of specifically biotech, and so she would only apply for accounting and biotech companies. So she gets to be involved in the industry of her choice with the job that she chose. And like same with art. You can do art for a whole bunch of things, but if you like video games, then you can study art and then focus on getting into video games. So I think it can be very intentional in that way.
My thought is that it's a combination of the preparation and a little bit location and luck. So obviously, if you want to get started doing something, one great way is just kind of start doing it. Like, you don't need permission. You can just start doing it. And there are some really good websites that teach either programming or other kinds of aspects of game design. So just being ready by training yourself and continuing to practice the thing that you want to do, and not expecting it to get handed to you. So then after you've like gotten some experience and practice and you network, you meet other people that are interested, you just start making a thing together. You both, all of you want to kind of contribute something, and so you agree to collaborate. And that collaboration can be quite challenging, but that's what you're learning to do, is how to collaborate. And then at a certain point, I think for me personally, it was that I did move to Austin to go to school, and that is a very great city for doing this kind of work. But also now, with things being very much more distributed and online, it may not be as necessary to go to a certain place, but it definitely in some cases could help. There are certain cities that are just a bit more density of people who do this. So you can find more people locally to collaborate with, and also companies, if you wanted to go work for a company, they're in certain locations. Yeah, and just sort of being ready by having done the thing already, and then finding a place and talking to people and sort of making that next step to do something maybe more professionalized. But definitely getting started with making your own thing is like the number one step, because everyone wants to see that you kind of already, not that you just think games are cool, but that you actually have put in the work to try to make a thing. And even a little bit more than that, that you've finished the thing. So you started a thing, it's like whatever, your Twine game or whatever, and you actually took it all the way from start to finish so that people can see that you're committed to that for the long haul, and not just like, gonna give up halfway.
One good way to do that, because that's what you need to be doing, but if it feels like a lot, tiny little chunks. Has anybody ever done a game jam in the room before? No? Oh, yeah, okay. So, some hands, yeah. Can people who have bigger hands? So game jams happening all around us, and including online communities all the time. And you can also do a game jam at home. A jam is it's not something you spread on your toast. It's an intense period of time. If you've ever heard of like a hackathon, faces, nods, hackathons, game jams, little weekend or a day or an hour where you get a prompt, or maybe you make one yourself, or you get a teacher to give you a prompt, and then you design a thing to try and fit that prompt. So what was the last prompt that we had at our game jam for Pitt? Was it transit? Migration. They were given one word, and they had a weekend, and everybody chose a board game, a computer game, a VR game, whatever they wanted, and they had to try and build a game around that word. And they interpreted it in a bunch of different ways, and then we had professors and like pizza and judges, and it was fun. You can also just like get people who are sitting next to you together for like an afternoon, maybe in the summer or on a Saturday, and be like, all right, we're jamming, we're gonna build a game. And then at the end of it, we're gonna have a game, and then we're gonna let people play it. Because here's the other thing, we want to see that you know how to like start and finish a game. We also want to see that you know the game is for your players, and that you can take feedback your players give you in that play test and then iterate on that game and make it even better, because you're never going to have total control of the game. Your players are always going to help shape that game or that game experience at the end, and that's great. That's part of what we want. That's the fun. So that was a lot of words, and I'm going to stop.
100% on all of that. I've met so many. The other thing great about game jams is you don't really maybe know the other people who are coming, and you get to know them so well by joining teams and seeing how they act and how they interact with each other, and if they are just like, selfish and trying to get all the stuff themselves, or if they're really good collaborators, or, you get to know people really well. It's quite intense, but it's just a really great way to get something made and figure out who you want to work with.
Let me also just add, there's a lot of Unity Engine YouTube tutorials out there that you could do. And so even if you don't know anything about game development, there's so many tutorials online. Any other questions?
If they want to start making stuff, what is some other tools that are online, especially free, because, they're kids?
Everyone's hopping on Godot lately. It's spelled Godot. And I haven't used it, but it is becoming more and more popular.
Yes, very, very, very much so. We see a lot of, it's actually really useful for things like a game jam, or if you're like just starting to play with a game engine, it's pretty friendly, and you can do a lot more than some people would say with it. Unity is free. You just got to make sure that your computer will handle it and not get angry about the technical specs that it requires. Twine, which has also been mentioned, if you TWINE, like a ball of twine, this is a really great way to like start designing like decision branches in a game and like cause and effect in a game. And you don't have to know how to code at all. It'll help teach you a version of HTML like Twinery code, and it has a visual editor. It's really nice. It's free. It's there. It runs on your web browser.
A few that people might not think of as game engines, but they in a certain way are Minecraft, Roblox, and Fortnite. So you can develop stuff in that you can share with other people. I think especially Roblox and Fortnite, they have pretty good tools for making stuff in engine using scripting, and you can add your own artwork, and and you can then share it really easily with other people because they're just such popular games.
What are the different like parts that you like of making a game? Like, what are all the different parts that you would have to do to make a game?
There are so many parts.
We have like a lot of, in this department, you know, once you guys go to college and if you want to come here after, that's what we do post-college. We do student groups that have a lot of different jobs on the student groups. And so big ones are programmer, you have your 2D artist or 3D artist, depending on if your game is, you know, 2D or 3D. You also have what we call a technical artist. So that's someone who might be designing like effects, you know, like if there's a sparking plug and the spark effect, that's like a technical artist design because you have to sort of set the...
It has a lot of math.
Has a lot of math to it. So yeah, technical artists. You have people who do sound design, like I said. You, of course, have our producer. Producer is a huge job of just like organizing all these individual parts. Those are narrative designer. We have narrative designers and we have game designers, so slightly different. Narrative designers are designing the story. The game designer might be designing the mechanic of the game. So if you think of something like Candy Crush, like the whole, when you put four together, what happens? That's the game designer, you know.
The rules of the game.
The
Like,
rules.
yeah, that's what kind of mechanics means. It's sort of like how do all the little parts of the game interaction work together to make it a fun thing.
Yeah. And then another big one is like UI UX designer. So that stands for user interface, user experience. And it's literally just like, does it feel easy to like, for someone to, the user to play and understand? So someone's whole job might be like, oh, the colors are too confusing and these two look too similar, or like the tutorial doesn't make any sense and they have no idea how to play the game.
Yeah, like every single thing that's on the screen was designed by someone, and maybe they used a reference from another game, but maybe they thought of something innovative, like even just like your score or your health bar or whatever. Like all of those things, somebody made those up and created them, and so those are some of the other parts.
Yeah, I think, was that all the main ones?
I feel like we
Did you
must
say
have missed
sound?
some.
Sound design? You
I
said?
said sound,
Oh,
yeah, sound
okay.
design. Yeah, yeah.
And you brought up play testing. I mean, that's a huge, huge part, and someone to manage that whole process, because that is a really important point. That if you have a vision in your head of what it's supposed to be like, but you don't get to go to everyone's house that's going to have your game and stand there beside them and be like, no, click on that, don't click on that. Like you have to make sure your game can do that all by itself. So you have to do a lot of practice with watching people playing it and seeing what they do, and if they don't understand it, then you change it so that when it goes into someone's house and you're not there to help them, it can still be a fun time for them.
Yeah, and then also kind of like what Vivian was saying earlier, those are all like roles, well, obviously for all games, but especially if you're like making a game in industry that you actually have to sell, there's also like business and finance and marketing and all of that too.
All that said, I want to clarify whether that's what you meant, if you meant the things that people do, or do you mean like the actual parts of the game?
Do you guys have a favorite coding language? And if so, what is it?
Good question.
I mean, I think I just use Python a lot. It's probably the easiest one. I use Unity a lot to make my games, and so Unity is in C#. I don't know if it's common, but like I came to C# from a background of C++ or C, which is C#. Fun fact is supposed to be C+++++, and if you put 4 pluses together, it makes a sharp. But the point is that C and C++ are like foundational languages, and C#, which is what Unity operates off of, is built off of that. But at the end of the day, the easiest is Python, I think.
Correct. Yes, I will attest.
I don't want to go in too deep. I don't actually code, but both of those things you mentioned are scripting languages, right? And that is something that I just learn on the job what I need to know in a scripting language. And some engines have their own scripting languages. And as a designer, those are the things that are most useful to me. But I don't actually code yet. And we haven't even uttered the words AI yet, but I have used AI to script things that I don't know how to code, but I made things in code using AI. That's, I think, as deep as it's going to go for me. So, yeah, not a coder.
Really quick, since I come from robotics, in robotics we use C and C++ a lot for low-level programming, so like programming devices to actually move. I also +1 vibe coding is what you call it if you use AI to code. Very useful for a lot of things. If you're gonna go into hardware and robotics, don't do it, I would say, because my interns vibe coded something for one of my robots, and it went crazy. It threw itself off of the table that it was on and completely destroyed itself because if there's gonna be physical consequences, it's a lot worse than your game just not working. Your robot will just crash. So, but yeah, +1 to vibe coding for a lot of situations.
Yeah, I think Python as well. And I also wanted to note, like, if there's anyone who's interested in programming and wants to get into it, even though it might sound like scary, like there's so many different languages, I feel like once you know one, the like knowledge behind it translates pretty easily to the other ones. It's just like an idea of thinking, not necessarily the syntax or the actual like words that you're typing out, if that makes sense.
You learn how to learn, and the languages are always going to evolve. Again, we got the lesson of like C#, right? But once you learn how to learn, then you can go forward, and it doesn't matter how the technical landscape is going to change, you'll be ready for it. And actually, that's going to make you much more appealing to employers than just being able to list like all the programming languages. If you can show that you learned how to learn a couple of them and then answer questions that evidence your independent ability to like pursue that, that's great.
And a great starting point is code.org, if that's still around.
I think so. I think so. I think it is.
Yeah,
Scratch is
I
definitely
think
still
so.
around.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And Scratch is another great tool.
I think that concludes the time. Thank you guys for coming, and if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Yeah.
Anthony gets to talk into the microphone. So we're going to move into small groups. So all these same people who are sitting in front of us right now brought something for a show and tell-ish segment. And I think that you've already been pre-grouped. Rachel, speak to me.
I have groups, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know them yet, so I'll share them with you.
Okay.
Yeah, take a microphone? Sure, yeah.
All right.
Thank you. And again, thank you so much to our panelists and our moderator. I mean, this was like a lifetime of like advice and things to carry you into the next few years of all of your learning and work. Okay, so our Bethlehem Center friends, you're going to be with Vivian. And you guys will be at the table, like on this side.
This one.
In the room, like beyond that wall, right? Okay. And then Allegheny Valley, you will be with Jess, also in that room, but like at the opposite table, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then Hopewell, Westate, and Baldwin will be with Heather, and that is here. Okay, and then with Malaya will be South Allegheny. Did I get everyone? Yes, okay. All right, so as you transition to your location, if I could also ask you, think about like there was so much information. So take a minute, think about like 1 or 2 things that you really want to hang on to and not forget. Feel free to talk with people in your group about it, but as you're kind of getting into your small groups, be thinking about that because we want to give you a moment also to process all of that information too. Okay? All right, thank you.
And I think my group will be over there.
Right,
Sounds
right
like
here,
in
yeah.
this
The
with
only
Malaya.
other, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, right here. Sorry, in this room. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.